you remember that peony tuber that I reset not too long ago? Well, I've got some updates for that. I'm going to show you how to plant some peony tubers. I ordered some new ones, and I'm going to show you why. I've got a fun planting project for my containers by the front door. And I've also got some coneflower and some milkweed that I need to get planted in the backyard. So we'll try to get all of that done today. We'll start with the most fun project, which are those containers by the front door. So I'll meet you there. All right, so here we are at the front door with those containers I was telling you about. Each container has the same plants. We've got a lemon cypress in the back. These were mums, little tiny mums that I planted last year that never really did anything. And now, of course, they want to take off. And then these are those evening primrose that I've been planting in containers. I just don't like them. And look over here, they weren't supposed to get this tall. They're just very weedy and there's just no appeal to them for me. So we're gonna get rid of them. It used to bother me. When I would see something like this, I would think, gosh, why would I do anything to that? It looks so great. But that's what gardening teaches us. It teaches us that if we don't like something, it's okay to change it. It's okay to make it what we want it to be, even if something's doing well. And I can always take these out and put them in a pot by themselves and nurture them until the fall and put them somewhere else in the landscape or in a different container. But for today, we are going to plant some lantana and some variegated ivy in each of these containers. It's just going to make them look so much cleaner, so much better. So I'll get you set up and we'll get that done. Okay, we'll start by getting these mums out of here. I planted these mums in the fall. And like I said, they just didn't do anything. They never really grew. They just were in the pots. They never really looked bad. They flowered a little bit, but they were just kind of there. It's okay to take things out. Look, there's all this root. I could plant this in another container, but it's okay to take it out and make it what you want it to be. You don't have to feel bad about that. Same thing in life, right? We always have a lesson that ties back to the garden. Don't feel guilty about doing what you want to do, even if you think that others wouldn't approve of it. I mean, obviously within reason. We can't go breaking any laws. We have to make sure that we're being kind. But it's okay to make your world what you want it to be, even if you've got to take a few plants out and change a few things. All right. We got some great rain over the last couple of days. Finally, we've had such a horrible drought. Okay, now the fun part. I'm excited about these containers. This lantana will not come back next year. They say no lantana comes back in the South. They are wrong. There is a hardy lantana, which, you know, everyone agrees that that is a perennial here, but these I am confident will not come back because they are in a container. I'm not planting them in the ground. If I were planting them in the ground, I'm not convinced that they wouldn't come back. The general rule of thumb when you're planting it in a container is that you want to have plants that are hardy. I would, to be safe, probably 2 zones down from where you're at. So these will not come back since they would be hardy just to my zone. I found all of these plants at a local nursery. I say local. It's not the shortest drive, but it's so worth it. It's family owned. They're just great people. The prices are great. They do a lot of their own growing, so they can keep prices low. But I have never seen a variegated ivy like this, and it's just the perfect spiller for the front of this container. So I saw that and was so excited about it. And this is just a bright, cheery container now, where before it was just overgrown and not doing anything. Oh, that's just so nice. Look at it. Now, I would not plant this ivy in the ground. Ivy is invasive, but in a pot, I'm happy to do it. And it should come back for me every year. Spread it out some. Oh, just love it. Already. Just such an improvement. I'm going to get the other one done, and I'll show you what they look like next to the door. And there they are. They're just so pretty. They just make me so much happier than what was here before. And that's what being refined is all about. All right, we're going to move on to our next project. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about is peony tubers. I want to show you why I've decided to replace the peony tubers that I planted. First of all, only one of them has started to sprout. I planted them several weeks ago. All of the others that I planted have come up except, I want to think 4, and then one that has sprouted, but is not a peony. You can see peony right there. That's what the leaves should look like. If I come over here to one of the ones that has sprouted, that's what it should look like. It should not look like long blades of grass. If I had to guess, that's a daylily. That's not a peony. So this is a lesson in buying peony tubers from a reputable site and not a big box home improvement store. So I ordered some peony tubers from a reputable site. I'm going to pull one of these tubers out of the ground and compare it next to one of the ones that I received from the online site. You'll see pretty quickly what the difference is. I am back and I want to show you big box store peony tuber. So you can see we've got one, 2, 3 eyes, which you want. You want your tuber to have 3 to 5 eyes. Looks like a good tuber. Nothing wrong with it, right? Except it had these same eyes when I planted it several weeks ago. Nothing's happened. I have another one that I just dug up. I rinsed these off. 1, 2, 3 eyes. Nice tuber, but look at this. I don't know if you can hear it. It is completely rotten. This one's fine, this one's not. These just weren't going to do anything. Compared to a site that sells tubers, y'all, there's no comparison. You get what you pay for. And these weren't even really that much more expensive. They were on sale. Look at the roots, the tuber, the eyes that are already, like, this wouldn't go underground. These are going to be above ground. I mean, and then look at this one. You could split this one into 2 separate, you could split it right here and have 2 tubers out of the one. There's just no comparison. All right, so let's talk about when we're planting peony tubers. When we plant them, we want the eyes to be facing up. So I wouldn't want to plant it like this or like this, because I see, right, that there's a set of eyes down here. So if I plant this vertical, that set of eyes would never bloom. It would be planted too deep. So this one's going to be planted sideways. Some of them you might get with maybe just this and the eyes may be all kind of pointed on the top, and you would put that vertical. This one would need to be horizontal. You want your eyes to be buried just about an inch under the soil. You don't want your eyes buried too much. So like here we have the eyes up here and then the tuber down here. So I'm going to bury the tuber, and then because these are already starting to sprout, let's see if I can get you, there you go. You get a clear picture. You can see that they're already sprouting. I'm not going to bury up to here. I'm probably going to bury, yeah, I'm just going to leave those right out of the ground. Everything else is it's going to get buried up into this point. I'll leave these out of the ground. And then this one, same thing. Eyes are pointed this way, so we know it's got to go in horizontally. It's got multiple smaller eyes that are also coming up, but all of this will get left out of the ground and everything else will get buried. And then I've got another one. So if it weren't for the eyes, you wouldn't know, right? You would think, oh, look at all these roots, you should plant it like this. But no, because we've got these eyes, and we can see here even a set on the back pointed up. So we know that this is the right way to plant it. And again, the eyes are already starting to sprout, so I'm not even going to bury the very top part. I'm going to leave the very top part out of the dirt. All right. So we'll start to get these planted. All right, so here's another one. You would think if this did not have these eyes, you would think it would be planted in the ground like this. These look like roots that should be planted vertically. But if I did that, do you see which way the eyes are going? They're not going to go up to the through the soil unless I plant it this way. So I have loosened up the soil where I want to put this. Let's see, let's make this a little bigger. I don't know if y'all can hear the bee. Let me see if I can get you. It's just living its life on this calibrachoa. He's got a lot of flowers to choose from. He's living his little best life. Look at him. All right, back to what we were doing. I get distracted easily when I see things like that. All right, so this tuber, can see, is going to just pop right up right here out of the soil where I want it to. Everything else is getting covered. It's as easy as that. You just have to know, you have to figure out the orientation of where those buds are trying to point, and then plant it accordingly. Some of them are vertically. The majority of what I see are horizontal like that, actually. All right, we'll put a little bit of mulch around here, and I'll mulch it better later, but okay. I've got 4 more to plant, and then we're going to move on to the next project. All right, I got all of those peony tubers planted, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about is how important it is to listen when your garden is trying to tell you something. I planted those peony tubers weeks ago. I was being patient. I've learned patience through gardening. When those tubers weren't sprouting, I thought, okay, it's fine. I'm not going to keep disturbing them. I'm going to wait. They will be fine. I will trust that they will be fine. And then that one that I showed you sprouted up, looking a lot like a daylily instead of a peony. That was my garden telling me something's not right. And now I'm able to get them all up make sure that I have something in there that I know is going to grow and be exactly what I want it to be. So let's move on to our last project, and that is to get some things planted in kind of the main back garden area. When we first moved into this house, we didn't have the retaining wall. We had a very sloped backyard. We got the retaining wall when we got the dog. Living her best life back there. We needed a fenced-in yard for her, and that slope would have been too much. She would have been able to scale any fence that we tried to put on the bottom of that hill. So we got the retaining wall. Before we had the retaining wall, I had a much smaller, really just a butterfly garden. I had a lot of different flowers in there that would attract pollinators, but it wasn't big. We did have the magnolia tree. We had a few things here and there, but once we put that retaining wall in, I decided that I wanted to really start more of a garden and really try to fill it in with a lot of different colors, different textures. But I have not gotten away from wanting a butterfly garden. I have coneflower in there. I have rudbeckia. I have a lot of plants that pollinators, butterflies in particular, would like, that you would see in a typical butterfly garden. This is butterfly weed. So this, I'll show you the tag, has these beautiful orange flowers. This will get 18 to 24 inches tall and 12 to 18 inches wide. So pretty compact for milkweed. That's what this is. So butterfly weed is kind of the smaller version, but I do have swamp milkweed. So much larger. We can already tell, right? It's going to be very, very large. And that's that tag. I don't have enough white in there. I have a lot of, I've just planted some white coneflower last year. I do have a white butterfly bush, a couple of white butterfly bushes on either side, but aside from that, that's all the white that I have. So I was excited to find this one that has the white flowers. This will get 3 to 4 inches tall, and this says 1 to 3 feet wide, but I think it's going to be more like 3 to 5 feet wide. This will get fairly large. And even though it says 4 feet, I think it could potentially get 5 feet tall as well. Now, let's talk about butterfly weed or milkweed. Monarch butterflies in particular need this as a host plant. So what does that mean? A host plant is where they will lay their eggs on the leaves, and some of the varieties of milkweed, both of these have smooth leaves. Some of the varieties have fuzzy leaves on the underside. Both of these are smooth. Although I will say this one, let's see if you can see, do you see the little hairs on the stems? So that's got some little fuzzy stems, but they will lay their eggs on the butterfly weed, and when the eggs hatch, the caterpillar will eat the leaves. And so that's how monarchs survive. They use these host plants to keep the circle of life going. And I am more than happy to help them do that in my yard. So we're going to get these planted. I've got 2 of the smaller ones, 1 of the larger ones, and I've got some salvia. And I've got to get some coneflower that I started from seed planted. So I'm going to take you out there, fair warning. When I was assessing where I was going to put some of these plants, I found a supply line for our drip irrigation. So I've had my husband come shorten that. So it was right in the middle of where I wanted to plant a lot of this. So I had him shorten that supply line. There is some irrigation that we are waiting to finish up until I figure out where I'm going to put these plants. So looks a little messy out there right now, but look at these plants in the ground. I'll take you with me when I do it. All right, so here's my plan. I've got some salvia. I've got one of the smaller, the butterfly weed, the other butterfly weed, and a salvia behind it. Another salvia, and that salvia. I'm going to move that small white coneflower over into this space right here. And then the larger, the swamp milkweed, I'm going to tuck away in this corner back here just to make sure it's got some space to grow. And that's it. That's the plan. So I'm going to get some holes dug, some things moved. We'll get this done. It's a good time to come do this since it's rained over the last couple of days. Soil's nice and soft. One of the things that we can do in the South to help our clay soil be more easy draining is all this mulch that I have around here. I can put mix a little bit of that into the soil. Something organic like that. I'm not against doing. I wouldn't put any additives like gypsum or anything into the soil. That can permanently change your soil structure, change the nutrient availability to your plants. So I don't advise doing that. I know some people do, but I think using what's already here, and that's going to break down eventually and provide nutrients to the soil, certainly is a better option in my book. Ooh, that shovel went right down. This is where that supply line was for the irrigation. This is all mud. Okay. I'm going to hold off on planting this salvia here for right now. I know it just rained, but that's an awful lot of water to be collecting in one spot. I'm going to fill this back in. I'm going to watch it. Give the ground a chance to dry out some. Reevaluate, make sure I don't have a bigger problem going on. And then we'll get this guy planted. These butterfly weeds like full sun, as does everything in this garden. It's a full sun garden. But they also have a long taproot. There are some that are invasive. If you're going to plant milkweed, make sure you do your research. There are some that are invasive. There are some that are not native. Plant a native one if you can. If you plant a non-native plant with the intent of trying to get monarchs to host on it, you could actually be doing more harm than good. A milkweed that does well in Florida might be a great place for a monarch to set up shop and lay some eggs, unless it's interrupting its normal migration patterns. And in that case, you're doing more harm than good. So as often as possible, do your research, stick with native plants. Plus, these are going to come back year after year. Why go through all this trouble? Plant a huge annual when you could plant a huge perennial that's going to come back every year and help you meet the goal with helping the monarchs. All right, one more of those to plant behind the magnolia tree. So I'm going to take this coneflower over to that other space, taking as much of the root with it as I can. All right, grab the coneflower and figure out where to put those. It is a hot day today in the Carolinas. All right, I started these coneflower from seed. These are purple and white coneflower. So they'll get large, maybe 2-3 feet tall. I already have some large varieties in the garden, but I used to be afraid of putting taller things in with shorter things. I was layer gardening. I had all the tall things in the back and then all the gradually smaller things until you got to the front. And that's not how things grow in nature. And I like a natural look in my garden. My garden doesn't have a very formal look, and I like it that way. So you might find some of these in future videos, growing up in places where there's shorter things behind them or next to them. But I think that's part of the charm and how we garden individually. So I'm going to get these planted. Remember our lessons for today. 1, don't be afraid of change. Listen to what your garden is telling you. It's easy to second guess ourselves, but when you second guess yourself, don't ignore the signs around you that are telling you to do what you knew was right in the first place. And until next time, stay rooted, stay refined, and I'll see you soon.